Welcome to Dave Examines Movies and TV. Today, I examine a theme of eternal life and fountains of youth. It's Tuck Everlasting. What would you do if you given an opportunity to live forever? Would it be even considered living, or would it be like rocks at the side of a river, watching as life streams by? Hey, I'm Dave, and I created DaveExaminesMovies.com. I've been reviewing movies for over 10 years, and I believe I've discovered the ultimate method for reviewing film. I've always used a 1 out of 100 star rating, but somehow that was still too biased and inaccurate for my taste. I wanted something so unquestionable that even if you hated something that I loved, you could appreciate my logic, and I found it. I call it Interpreting the Stars, which puts a movie into 10 categories, 5 solid categories that fit any film, and 5 specialty categories created specifically for the movie at hand. The first 5 categories are people, writing, behind the scenes, narrative arc, and overall entertainment. Each of these categories will have 5 subcategories of their own that ultimately define the star rating of the film. You'll no longer have to ask why a film's rated 76% versus 77. You'll now know what each and every star represents. This is Dave Examines Movies and TV. Hello, and welcome to this next week of Dave Examines Movies and TV. And this week is also another specialty week, themed week anyways. Last week was Kids Week. This week it's Wife's Week, really, because I call it Wife's Choice. But in reality, all it is Wife's Choice, Wife's Week. And how this works is I asked my wife last week what movies I should be reviewing this coming week, so this week. And she gave me a whole bunch of different movies, and those movies this week will be Tuck Everlasting for Monday. Tomorrow I will be talking about Wife's Choice for TV Tuesday, so she picked out 25 TV shows that she's going to be actually talking with me tomorrow on the podcast about, because I haven't seen everything she has. On Wednesday we're going to be talking about Antitrust. On Thursday will be The Chum Scrubber, and on Friday it will be The Bumblebee Flies Anyway, if I actually get around to watching it. We have not yet seen The Bumblebee Flies Anyway, so I'm a little late on schedule for that. But if I don't actually end up seeing that, I will be reviewing a different movie in its stead, which I also watch with my wife. So anyways, all of these movies are ones that she decided and picked out for us to watch and review together. So it's kind of cool because a lot of these are really hard to find. It's like a search and I don't know what you call it thing where these movies are just legitimately difficult to actually find. So once we found them, we had to watch them, and so I got my pointers out there. Tuck Everlasting's probably the easiest to find out of the rest of the movies on this list. So you could probably find it on, I don't know where you could find it, but it's easy to find. Anyways, Tuck Everlasting, according to IMDb, is, quote-unquote, a young woman meets and falls in love with a young man who is part of a family of immortals. Which, I mean, more or less, that's exactly what it's about. I mean, it's pretty much down to the point. It's down to these people that can't die because they found a fountain of youth in their backyard or forest by their house, and that's basically what it's about. And it came out in 2002, and IMDb rates it 6.7 out of 10. I can tell you that I rated it. Hold on, let me check real quick. I rated it pretty close to that, but I won't tell you exactly what it is until we get into it. That's what it's about. Who's in it? We got Alexis Bledel, Sissy Spacek, and William Hurt, I would say, are the main people who are recognizable in it. Further down, you have Victor Garber and Ben Kingsley, but really the rest of them are kind of unknown in my opinion. They haven't really been in a lot of other things but this, so I won't really mention them, and that's unfortunately most of the Tucks in Tuck Everlasting are unknowns other than the parents of William Hurt and Sissy Spacek. The sons, I couldn't tell you. I have no idea who they are or what else they've been in. Alright, so Tuck Everlasting. Let's get into the review. So the review has the first category of people, which goes into 5 subcategories as usual for acting, the characters, the casting, the importance, and the chemistry. And this is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to both have my ratings for everything as well as my wife's ratings for everything. So let me pull those back up because I have mine up right now. Let me pull up hers. Here we go. 2002 and hers. Okay. So my rating for the acting was 1 out of 2 because I didn't think it really had what it took to have emotion or a real balance to what's going on. I thought it was pretty much flat for the most part, and I think a big unfortunate part of that was Alexis Bledel because she's not the greatest actress in the world, and she really is flat in a lot of her roles. I mean, she's sweet, and she's cute, and she's, innocent and everything, which she's almost always in her roles, and she can pull that off, but unfortunately, as far as an acting range, I don't think she really has one, and I think she really pulls down the acting ability of everybody else in the movie. My wife said for the acting ability as well as 1.5. So she and I agree on the acting side of things that the acting wasn't the greatest. So we're going to move on to the characters. For the characters, I said 2 out of 2 possible stars. And that's because when I think of this movie, when I think of Tuck Everlasting, I really do think of the faces of it. I think of Alexis Bledel and unnamed so-and-so for the lead. I don't know his name, but I do picture him. I do picture William Hurt and Victor Garber and Ben Kingsley. And I do remember them. So am I remembering the actors? Am I remembering the characters? That's a good question. And I will say probably it's a mix and mash between them because Alexis Bledel is always the same in everything. This guy who I've never seen before, I don't know, because the guy she falls in love with, I've never really seen him in anything other than this, and I have to picture him for his character. That's the only thing I have left to view on. And it's a movie with a name in the title, Tuck Everlasting. So these characters are memorable enough to be characters that can't die, right? So for me, the characters were memorable enough to give it 2 out of 2 stars. My wife gave the characters 1 out of 2 stars. I think it was mostly because she's seen better in that kind of aspect, and I understand that. And usually when somebody's rating higher than the other, it's not usually me. She usually rates other things higher. And so it's kind of weird. So characters for her was 1 out of 2. Next up is casting. What do we think of the casting? Both Hillary and I agree on this one. We both believe the casting was subpar, and it was 1 out of 2. My question to her and to myself was, could anybody else fill these shoes? And I think, and how easily could they do it? And is there a possibility that if they filled those shoes, could they have done it better? And honestly, I think the answer is yes. I think they could actually remake this movie and do everything a little bit better, including the casting. I believe that they needed something more connectable, something that we could all relate to, and I think that the casting was in part of the problem. They could have clearly picked different people to play these roles that are somewhat memorable. So, casting 1 out of 2, she said it as well, casting 1 out of 2. As far as importance, I said 1 out of 2 stars. She said 2 out of 2 stars. So let's try to figure this out. She said it because everybody in the role is doing something different. And I kind of see that and I kind of don't. Obviously, you have the Tux, then you have the yellow-suited man, you have, Alexis Bledel's character and her family's what's going on. So they're all kind of there and they're all kind of doing different things. However, in my opinion, the only important Tuck is the main Tuck, Jonathan. Or Jesse Tuck is the most important Tuck, and Winnie Foster is the most important Foster, and of course Ben Kingsley is important as a yellow-suited man. However, I don't think anybody else is really all that important. They play important roles here and there, but for the most part, they're completely forgotten about. I know Victor Garber. I see him even now in TV for The Legends of Tomorrow, but in this, he was Alexis Bledel's character is Winnie Foster's her father, and he basically disappears once she's off with the Tucks. And the Tucks just they just fade out. So for me, it was 1 out of 2. For her, it was 2 out of 2. And we're going on. For chemistry, I gave it 1 out of 2 stars, and she did as well. It's not a movie that bases its importance on chemistry, so therefore it doesn't really have chemistry. Then again, I disagree with that because I believe this needed chemistry, lots of it, because it's not a very strong story for a movie, so they needed the chemistry for the romance. And I wasn't really feeling it. I felt like they were really good friends, but that's about it. Like, I couldn't feel that chemistry between them. I couldn't really feel the chemistry between her and her own father, between her and the Tucks. Maybe more with the Tucks, I guess. I don't know. The most chemistry was between her and the Tucks as a whole, but not with Jesse as a romantic partner. For me, it was 1 out of 2 for the chemistry. So was it with my wife. So actually, we kind of flipped our scores there for a little bit, but we actually came down with the same exact people score of 6 out of 10 possible stars. So that's pretty cool. So we're going to move right along. Our next category for the movie review is the writing score. That goes into 5 subcategories of the dialogue, the balance, the story, the originality, and how interesting it is. So, all in all, her writing score is higher than mine, so let's get into it. The first one's dialogue. How is the dialogue here? Well, my wife said 1 out of 2 possible stars, while I said 2 out of 2 possible stars. There was a couple of lines in the movie that I liked, and I actually used one in the introduction for this review, and it was like, we're like rocks stuck at the side of the river just watching as life passes us by, or something like that. I can't say it verbatim, I'm just saying it off of memory. But it is a memorable line, and there is one later on that is memorable as well. And I can't say much, but there is more lines here and there that are pretty good. So I did say 2 out of 2 for the dialogue. She said 1 out of 2 because it just wasn't enough for her. She needed something more with the dialogue, and it just wasn't giving for her. For the next one was the balance of the film. She and I both agree that it is a balanced film. It is not overconvoluted. It is easy to understand. It is a pretty straightforward story about this girl meeting a boy that lives forever and then trying to decide if that's what she wants for herself as well. That's really all it's about. So as far as that goes, we both agree that it is dialogue as far as that goes. 2 out of 2 for... not for dialogue. 2 out of 2 for balance, sorry. Next up is the story. She and I both agree that the story is pretty good, that it is 2 out of 2 possible stars, and it mostly comes down to the inner kind of fight she's having with herself on is if this is what she wants for life, if this is what she wants, is to live forever with Jesse, who's already living forever. You know, it kind of reminds me a little bit of Twilight in that aspect. If Bella wants to become a vampire to live forever with Edward and everything, it kind of reminds me of that. But for this, it's more of a deeper underlining thing, because it does, living forever is not a reality. The Fountain of Youth isn't real. However, there is a theoretical question that people often ask themselves about what would they do if they lived forever. Would that actually be a good thing, or would you rather grow old with somebody and eventually die with them? So I think it comes down to some deep questions there. So she and I both agree that the story is 2 out of 2 stars. Originality. My wife said 2 out of 2 stars for that, while I said 1 out of 2 stars. Now I'll try to explain. I believe that The Fountain of Youth has been overused in so many different movies. And I know this is its own thing, and it's based off of a book and everything. I think I read the book and everything too. But The Fountain of Youth, as a foundation for a story, has been used a million times. And that's not really even kidding. It's been used a lot. So, I can't really call it original. But my wife says it's original because I think she sees it as a movie that's not so much about the Fountain of Youth as it is about these characters. And that's cool too. So this just comes to show you how different you perceive a movie when you're watching it. So as far as that goes, I said originality is 1, she said it was 2. As far as interesting, this is one of her favorites, so she gave it 2 out of 2 stars. That's all I really have to say about that. But interesting for me, not really. I think it's okay. I think it's an okay movie. Whenever I saw it before, and I considered it somewhat interesting because of the Fountain of Youth, but I didn't really care about the characters. So from her perspective and from mine, it's a little opposite actually, because I didn't really care for the characters while she did. So I gave it 1 out of 2 possible stars for interesting. She gave it 2 out of 2. So all in all, my writing score was an 8 out of 10 possible stars, while hers was a 9. So we're off by like 1 point right now. She's at 15 out of 20, and I'm at like 14 out of 20. So, not terrible. If you hear a child screaming or crying in the background, that is my son, who is supposed to be sleeping right now or napping. He hasn't quite gotten there yet. Happens sometimes when I do these. Anyways, next up is the BTS behind the scenes score. Once again, hers is a little bit higher than mine is. Let's get into it. Let's talk about the visuals. Visuals, she said 2 out of 2 stars, while I said 1 out of 2 stars. And for that, I'll just say this. The movie wasn't all that spectacular for me. I think for the most part it was rather average. It was even cheap at sometimes, in my opinion. I thought some of the backgrounds were like clunky, like it was an obvious set background in some places, but she didn't notice these things, and she said there was a couple of shots in there that she actually really likes and can remember rather well. So for her, it's more of what she can remember from the movie and that she appreciated. So for her, it was 2 out of 2 stars. For me, it was 1 out of 2 stars because it just wasn't enough of visuals. Like, this is a movie that I remember for the visuals. So 1 out of 2 stars for me, 2 out of 2 for her. Next up is the directing. Now, I'm going to actually clump this into one, because we have directing and editing. Let's clump those together. Directing and editing for both me and my wife. We both said 1 out of 2 stars for directing, and both said 1 out of 2 stars for editing. And the main reason why is nothing stood out as far as the direction. Nothing really stood out for the editing. It was all very, very typical, very accustomed to what you were expecting for a basic movie. So 1 out of 2 stars for those. Let's move us up onto advertising. She and I agree on advertising. We both said 2 out of 2 stars, which basically means it was as advertised. And it's how you remember it. It's how it was advertised. There's nothing faulty here or false advertisement here. So 2 out of 2 stars for that. The music, let's see. She said for the music 1 out of 2 stars, and so did I. So as far as that goes, the music is pretty typical for the movie. It was written how it should have been written to match that theme. So we both said 1 out of 2 stars. So that brings my total score for behind the scenes up to 6, while hers is at 7. And the most reason is because of the visuals there. So that brings her up to, let's see, she started at 6 to 15. Now she's up to 15, 20, 22 out of 30, I think. While I'm at, 21, 20 out of 30, something like that, 14, and then, yeah, I get confused. All right, yeah, I'm at 20 out of 30. Okay, we're moving on. Narrative arc scored. All right. Her narrative arc score is a little bit higher than mine again. So let's get into it. This is important because if you're ever watching a movie, you feel like something's off, it could be the narrative arc. So we're talking about the introduction, the inciting incident, obstacles, climax, and falling action. Oh, poor kiddo. Can't fall asleep. Alright, so the first one is introduction. She and I agree on this one. It's basically introducing the characters. It's introducing the concept of immortal life. So 2 out of 2 for that. Inciting incident. She and I disagree on this one. She said 2 out of 2 for the inciting incident, while I said 1 out of 2 because I felt like I missed the inciting incident. She said it was when she was like kidnapped and everything, but I couldn't even tell that's what was happening as her being kidnapped. It was so fluidly innocent that it didn't feel like a kidnapping. It just felt like hanging out at a friend's house. And there was no going back from that, I guess, if it was a kidnapping, but I didn't feel like that. So 1 out of 2 for that. It didn't match for me. Now, the rest of these, she and I agree with. So the obstacles, the climax, and the falling action. We both agree that all of those deserve a 2 out of 2 star rating. So the obstacles were pretty clear. They were all weak, but they were clear, I would say. Because they had to go through some obstacles because of the yellow man in the suit. The climax was pretty clear at the end. There's a jail setting, but I won't really get into that there. So that's pretty clear. The falling action, going back to the norm, it had a pretty good falling action as well. So all in all, we were just 1 apart from each other. I had 9 and she had 10 for the narrative arc score. So I'm at 29, and she must be at 32 out of 40. Last up on the main ones are... Well, let me get my kid out of his bedroom because he's not taking a nap, and then we will continue. So, doop-de-doop-de-doop-de-doop. Oh, Liam. Hi. Hi. Oh, poor kiddo. You're interrupting my podcast. Oh, I'll push you over there. All right. There you go. Okay, so where was I? All right, so we are on the last bit of the scores. So we're talking about the entertainment score, which goes into 5 subcategories of rewatchability, how fun it is, the impulse to buy it, the impulse to talk about, and if it sucks the audience in. Now, this is the most dramatic difference between my wife's and I's rating of it. Yeah, that's crazy, huh? Alright, so to tell you the exact number difference of what we have for this, it's 7 points of a difference, and hers is higher. So let's talk about it. So we're talking about rewatchability. She has seen it multiple times. And he's loud. She's seen it multiple times already, so her rewatchability was kind of already set at 2 out of 2 possible stars. But mine was at 1 out of 2 possible different stars. This is a rewatched movie for me, but after seeing it again, I don't really care to see it again. But I guess I would at some point in the future if my mood permits it or whatnot. So for me, it was 1 out of 2, while her, it was 2 out of 2. Fun. That means basically, are you having fun watching it? For her, obviously, it's one of her favorites, so 2 out of 2 for hers. Mine was 1 out of 2. I thought some instances were pretty cool. And one in particular, when the guy gets shot and just kind of stands right back up. That's pretty cool. It's a fun moment. But the rest of it's slow, and it's not all that interesting to keep my attention. The next one's, do you have an impulse to buy it? My wife said 2 out of 2 for that because she did buy it. For me, I said 0. I had no impulse to buy this one because it was what it was. Impulse to talk about it. She said 1 out of 2 stars for this. She thinks there's our discussion points about it. and that she would definitely talk to somebody about it, but she didn't have an urge to. I said 0 out of 2 to talk about it. I don't really care to talk about it with anybody. It's just a movie to watch and just kind of leave it at that. So the next one up was, does it suck the audience in? Again, I said 0 out of 2 stars. I wasn't really ever sucked in while watching this. I can't really say I ever was when I first came out either. But she did say 2 out of 2 stars there. So it sucks her in when she's watching, she really enjoys it. So that actually brings her entertainment score up to 9 out of 10 possible stars. And it brings my entertainment score up to only 2 out of 10 possible stars. So that's actually our main difference between our decisions. But which brings us into our fantastic specialty categories that I wrote before watching the movie. She also answered these as well as I did. So let's see how we measure up to our specialty categories. The first ones that you're going to think of when you're thinking about Tuck Everlasting is the romance. It is a romance. So how does the romance fare? I would say 5 out of 10 possible because of the chemistry that's kind of missing there. And the fact that the focus wasn't much on the romance at all. It was more on discovery of this girl, and she's discovering about this founding of youth, discovering who these people are, and things like that. It's more like that than it is romance. So I will say 5 out of 5. She said 5 out of 5 as well. So we both are kind of on the same page there. Does it hold up to memory? So we both seen it before, so the real question is, does it hold up to memory? I remember I really liked it. I remember I read the book, and then I saw the movie and with my family, and I remember liking it. So it doesn't hold up as far as that's concerned. I'm not as entertained as I used to be with it, so I'll have to say 5 out of 10 stars for that. However, my wife did say 10 out of 10 because it's one of her favorites, and it does hold up to memory. How about, does it feel like the period it takes place in? Or does it feel more like a production? For me, I felt like it felt like a production. I felt specifically like it was slightly better than a Hallmark movie that you see on cable. Slightly better than that. She said it felt like the era, like it was supposed to, and it was totally fine there. She said 10 out of 10 there, but I said 5 out of 10. Next up is, what about you would think it's a fountain of youth movie, and does it meet your expectations there? Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what it is. 10 out of 10 stars for me, 10 out of 10 for her. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Finally, because it's been so long since I last saw it, I couldn't remember. I mean, I could say it held up to my memory so much, but I can't say if it was halfway decent or not. So for this, I will say 10 out of 10 stars. It was what it wanted to be, and I have to respect it for that and say it was 10 out of 10 stars for that. She as well said 10 out of 10, I feel like, obviously. So the most part, we actually agreed for the most part. My score was 35 out of 40 possible, and hers was 45. So, I mean, I guess it wasn't exact, but it was pretty similar to some of them. So, for the most part, that's what it was. So, total score for Tuck Everlasting. My score was 66%. 66 out of 100 possible stars. Her score was 86%. 86 stars out of 100 possible stars. So, you're talking about a difference of 20 stars that she feels differently about. I mean, 86. That, in my rating system, gives her a golden star. It means it's one of her, like, favorites. For sure. I mean, not only one of her favorites, but a technical... She considers it a technical... technically great movie, also a movie that she loves watching as well. That's what that means. For me, I actually rated it higher for everything else but an entertainment and specialty category. So I think she's probably right there. I think that a lot of the technical stuff wasn't too bad. The writing was the biggest score that I gave it. but writing and a narrative arc score, those hit high marks no matter what. But yeah, she definitely likes it a lot better than I do. I couldn't see myself watching this again just because she's probably going to have me watch it again. But as far as this is concerned, this is my rating, 66%. It's not a terrible movie by any means. I like the concept, but I just feel like it could have done better in certain areas than it did. Anyways, that was the first movie out of Wife's Choice. Tomorrow, my wife will be here. We've actually already recorded the episode, and if you were around when we recorded it, we accidentally recorded it live. It'll be up again tomorrow at noon, but we recorded it yesterday, or Saturday actually, and she's going to be here. She has 25 different TV shows that affected her in some way or other, and she's going to be talking about that tomorrow for TV Tuesday. So look out for that. Other than that, thanks for listening. If this is the first time you're tuning in, thank you for tuning in. You can subscribe if you want to, if you liked what you heard. So like it, subscribe to it. Email me at dave@daveexamensmovies.com. Also, my other podcast has just begun called Smaller on the Outside. You can find that over here on Spreaker, or it's everywhere as well. It's on iTunes, Google Play, Podomatic, everywhere. So check that out. I also created a new website for Smaller on the Outside called sotocast.weebly.com. It basically just shows you the current episodes and the archived episodes of season 1 through 7 thus far. It also actually has this podcast on the bottom of on the website as well, so that's pretty cool. So that's my other podcast. It's also live right now, so you can check that out. Check this out. Subscribe to them both. I don't care. My Twitter handle is IAMDWG, so you can check that out. You can find my website, daveexamensmovies.com. You can email me. I already told you the email. I'm on Facebook. I'm everywhere, guys. Shout out. Ask any questions. I'll look into it. And if you have a suggestion, let me know. If it's a suggestion to watch a movie, I'll definitely check that out. So thanks for tuning in, you guys. I guess I'll see you guys tomorrow with TV Tuesday. Have a good night.
Dave examines movies we just watch for fun. Davey is the expert. He is the #1 critic that I go to when I need a movie pick. Thanks for joining up with us. We think you're pretty slick. Thank you.